Hello, imaginary friends, and welcome to the Imaginaries Literary Podcast. Today we are continuing our conversation with Cindi, where we just talk about query letters, what goes into them, and how to write them. So what stands out, what grabs your attention where you're like, I need to read this book. I can't wait to read these 3 chapters that they sent me.
So assuming all the physical parts are there.
In the query, yeah.
Something that's just offbeat enough to catch my attention.
What do you mean by offbeat? Do you mean like that it's like a retelling of a fairy tale where things go wrong and Prince Charming isn't Prince Charming? Or like what is offbeat to you? What does that mean?
Something I've never thought of before or heard or seen before. And that's pretty unusual. But if I see it and I'm intrigued, I will keep reading. But that doesn't mean I'm interested in something that's unintelligible. Sometimes it's just simply unintelligible.
Sometimes there's a reason we haven't seen it before.
That's right.
That sums it up.
Some people write stream of consciousness, and you know, and I see the intrigue in that, but it's not really always something other people can read.
So I wrote a query letter years ago for one of my books, and it was from one of the characters in my book, where they're like, hey, I found this book that my mother wrote in the attic, and it's really interesting, and so I'm sending it to you, and, you know, there's magic, and blah, 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 blah. And so it gave all the information, but it was told as like, yeah, I just found this thing, and I thought it would be great to publish it. And I think that it was too far out of the box, because one of the agents that actually replied to me, her reply was, no thanks. And that's...
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. God have mercy on your soul.
I have only written professional query letters after that one because I was so burned that I don't know. Maybe I didn't do a good job.
A full sentence might have been nice, just to clarify why exactly no thanks.
It wasn't even thank you. It was just no thanks. But, you know, it was an answer, so that's good. But that was something, that was me trying to like be outside the box, trying to do something different, because I was so bored of just writing that same query letter. Dear John, dear Jane, dear whomever, like, check out my book. It's amazing. And these are the comp titles. And it was like, to me, it was just so like monotonous. And so I was like, I'm going to use my creativity muscles. And
it's hard too, because, you know, we're creative writers. So writing something just formal is hard for us, because we want to make it creative. We want to tell a story in it. We want to do something fun with it. But I think you describing it as a job interview is perfect. It helps bring that like, oh, okay, this is why I have to write it, the way I have to write it, because I'm not telling a story here. My story is the story. This is the job interview. This is where I walk in with I wear a suit and tie normally in everyday life, but if I go to a job interview, I might. I think that's a helpful paradigm shift as a creative writer to me.
It does seem boring. I can see that it would be boring to over and over and over again, but don't sell it like a used car. Maybe you need to know that I'm not looking for anything beyond nuts and bolts in the synopsis, because I want to hear beginning, middle, and end. Right. I want to hear the main character, the hero, and the villain, and I want to hear how the book ends. And I don't want to hear anything flowery, and I don't want it to be beautiful. And I actually wrote that, I think, on my website, that I don't want it to be beautiful, because the synopsis really isn't about your writing there. It's just about getting the job done at that point. Because I will read your sample, and that's where I see what you write. Not beautiful, not too much detail. And I don't want the synopsis to end with a teaser, because, and what do you think will come next? That's what you're supposed to tell me. I don't want you to end the synopsis with a question mark, because that's exactly what I need to know right now. So don't ask me a question. This is where you tell me what I need to know.
Stop it. Get some help.
Cindi, they're telling you, what is it? How does my book end? I don't know how it ends. You tell me.
I need to know.
Then I'll write it. No, for me, I remember when I started querying, and it was the hardest break in my brain to take my book and break it down into just the character arcs and just this, because the way that she speaks is amazing, or, you know, this thing happens and it's awesome. but it's not like, really important in the query letter. And so I would write a query letter and it would be like 1,000 words. And I'm like, oh, but everybody's telling me it should only be like 250. What do I do? How do I break this down? And it's almost like killing your darlings again, but even more so because it's so formal. It like feels so corporate that it's like, oh, I hate this, but it is super beneficial, and it is something to learn, and it's something that you have to get good at if you're going to be an author in today's world. Everybody can write to Cindi. Everybody can write to Penguin. Everybody can write to any publisher nowadays. You have to do your best in your query letter and in your samples that they're asking for to make it so that you actually stand out, and you have to do it like the right way, the way that they ask it. And you'll find agents that they ask for different things. So some agents are like, just give me a query letter. And some people are like, well, give me the first 3 chapters. Okay, give me the first 50 pages. And so that's something that you have to really pay attention to, because there have been a couple of nights where I'm like, oh my gosh, did I put the right name? Oh my gosh, did I send them the right amount? Oh no.
You probably did.
And then, yeah, probably, but it's still bothering me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's definitely hard. That was a hard break in my brain. So go ahead.
Right, which is why honestly I haven't really gotten that process started myself, because my brain is still cracked over that. But
it's perfectly formed.
Well, yes, thank you. It's not actually broken. I meant, metaphorically. Okay. So, do you think, Cindi, that the majority of agents and publishers feel the way that you do about the nuts and bolts? Do you think that's probably true for most?
I think so.
Okay.
But you can Google it and see what other people are writing, which I did when I was bringing my things together for my website, just to make sure I wasn't going off the charts there. And by all means, follow people who make these kind of recommendations and who talk about it. Follow the published writers. Do you guys follow Jane Friedman? JaneFriedman.com. She puts out a weekly newsletter for free for writers, and she really knows all of her stuff. You should definitely follow her, and that's on my website as well on some of these notes. There are so many people out there offering free advice, and a lot of them really know their stuff. Some of them put out nonsense. I would be careful.
Yes,
go to the people who know what they're talking about, and then follow the folks that they recommend, and be careful. Do what you did with me. Verify before you follow somebody's advice. Yes. Be careful and check.
We talked about flags on a query letter, but can you tell me like the biggest red flag? Is it attitude? Is it missing things? Or what is it? What's the biggest red flag?
Honestly, I would probably say the biggest one for me is for someone who says, I don't have any comparative titles because I don't read fiction.
They wrote fiction, but they don't read fiction?
Yeah.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And it's not just one person who's ever said it. I've read it a number of times. I haven't read it 100 times, but I've read it a handful of times. It makes me wonder a lot of things, but it also did not make me want to read the book, because it just didn't give me any confidence in that author's approach to writing. And truly, the best way to know how to write is to read a lot. You read books that you like, read books that you love, read books that you don't love as much, read books about writing, read, and if you don't have good comps for your book, I can believe that, it's possible to write a book and then say, well, I don't know what book is quite like this, but that just means read, because people send, a lot of times they say, I don't know what book is like my book. That just means you didn't do your homework before you submitted. Before you queried, do your homework first. If you don't have a comp, then read some more books, because I have to read books before I pitch a book sometimes. Sometimes I have to read a couple of books so that I have good comparative titles to stand with the pitch to my senior editor. So if I'm doing that, why can't the author do that with their own query? Because that's part of my job. I mean, I'm reading books and books and books and books and books, and then I'm reading more books for comparative titles to go with the books. But that's part of it. So you should know enough about the market and about other books to know what's like your book. And don't ever say that there's no book in the world like my book, because I'm not, we don't expect any book to be exactly like it. Of course not, because you're unique. And so any book you write is going to be unique. the style may be similar to a book, or the main character may be similar, or the villain might be kind of like the villain in another book, or the climax may be like the climax of another book. It's just something that makes you think of another story.
Yeah.
That's all.
I have to be honest, the only book that I've actually finished so far, these guys seem to have very little trouble from my perspective. Maybe you feel like you did, so correct me, feel free. Seem to have very little trouble like comparing their work to something, and I was having trouble comparing my own work to something. And I think at the end of the day, it wasn't that I hadn't read anything like it, it's just that I didn't realize what I was drawing from to some extent. I don't know how I did the process, but eventually I figured out, oh yeah, it's kind of like these three other things. I had to it was just
so
spending
maybe you
time.
sort of need to take it apart a little bit and think about it in pieces.
Yeah.
That was simplified, very simplified way of saying
No,
it.
that was it.
No, it's definitely, it was really hard on my first book. I drew a lot from Harry Potter because that was one of the books that really inspired me to like just write. But like Cindi said, like that time is over. And a lot of agents ask for books within the last 5 years of what your book is like.
That makes it harder.
It's really difficult because it's your book. And like Cindi said, you're unique. And so you hold certain aspects of that book. Like this is the most important part. This ring is the most important part of the book.
Cast it into the fire! Destroy it!
There's no other book that has ever written anything like this thing. And it's like, yeah, but everything else is the same as that book over there. So you can find stuff. You can definitely find some stuff. Your book, Daniel, is definitely hard to pin down. I would say. I want to hear the comps that you have for your book.
Yeah,
but I love.
Well,
it.
I need to
The book
update
is
them though.
fantastic.
Like, thank
right,
you.
exactly.
But like 10 years ago,
like,
I finally figured out. Oh, it's kind of like this and that.
Well, like Cindi said, you could even use like one film or one TV show or something,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
use books as well.
That's helpful too.
Just sandwich it, just don't use television. But I've heard that as well from other agents and other editors where they talk about like, yeah, you can use TV, just don't use too many. And it's like, all right, cool. That helps out a lot.
Yeah, it's part of a vibe.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And then I find out that TV show is actually based off of a book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to read that book.
There you go.
We talked about my main question, sort of, and it's it's still churning, but it's like I've always had that frustration. Like, and I had the same thing in music and sound design. It's like, okay, John Williams, he usually didn't use synthetic sounds, right? But nowadays, if you want to compose, you have to know your way around a digital studio. And I was like, well, what about all those composers who are great and just it's not in them to work with digital stuff, but they're great composers. Nobody's ever going to hire them because. And so I feel the same way about writing. Like, it's kind of unfortunate. There must be some fantastic authors that are never going to get read because they're never going to have social media.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know the way around that other than just having really good friends who are going to push them into it. That's the only thing I know.
It's me and Timothy. We're pushing it. Daniel is one of the best writers that I've ever read.
Absolutely incredible author.
But he cannot. He just can't get his stuff out. He doesn't know how to get his stuff out. And so
my next question was actually going to be: have you ever had anyone submit a query on behalf of someone else? Because I would love to send queries on Daniel's behalf.
That's some.
Right,
I don't even deserve you guys.
That's why the bio isn't filled. That's what the bio isn't filled when
Because they're actually submitting it for someone else.
yeah, for somebody else.
Not exactly. Not a non-agent. No, it doesn't really happen like that. It's very kind, though.
It may happen.
It would make me stop and think. I would definitely make me stop and think.
Just don't write it like you found it in your
Right.
grandmother's book in the attic.
Don't be too creative about
No, thanks.
it. But you know it's going to sound like,
no, that's
yeah,
good.
your friend.
Yeah, you're-
Friend.
I have this friend, and he has a problem.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
And he's not 10.
Problem. So, Cindi, are you open for queries, and what are you looking for? Please tell us so that we can tell the world what you are looking for and
Add to your slush pile.
reach you and add to that
Yes.
Slack file.
I am open to queries. I'm looking for fantasy and sci-fi. I am also looking for young adult fantasy and sci-fi. Most of my queries right now that I'm hanging on to have been adult because that's what's been coming through, but I am taking both.
Awesome. And we can put your website and your query tracker and everything. We'll put that in the description. Do you have a specific wish list? I see a lot of agents and editors have wish lists. Like somebody will say, hey, I want this type of book. I want the Gulag Archipelago. I don't know why that was the one that I thought.
Nobody wants that. Authors want that,
I think? Oh,
but the publishers don't.
All right, somebody says, my wish list is To Kill a Mockingbird or Harry Potter or you fill in the blank. Do you have a book that you are looking for that's kind of like another book?
I like to see something I'm not expecting. I really do. I like to see something that's that I know isn't AI written. And the things that I've picked up lately, I know for sure that weren't AI written because it couldn't possibly. It's just too creative and too wonderful. So no, I just I know it when I see it, but I don't have a specific thing in mind. And it might not. It might not fit in one of those two categories. I can pick whatever I see coming through the chute there. So sometimes I see something and it's not one of my favorite categories, and I say I'm going to take a look at that because I just don't know. I might snag that one because I'm feeling crazy today, or whatever.
You haven't sworn a lot that
Feels
day.
like a cozy mystery today. Just woo.
That's great. That's great. Hi. If you want to watch something, watch this. Or maybe it's over here. I don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be somewhere.